Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be checking out the Blue Ox Avail tow bar. So when it comes to picking out a tow bar for your flat tow, it's a big important decision. It's responsible for a lot of the work that's going on whenever you're pulling your vehicle down the road. And there's a lot of tow bars out there to choose from, and what one's going to be best for you is really just going to depend on your situation. There's a couple of big things that I look for when I'm researching tow bars. One of them is going to be how well is it going to pull your vehicle down the road? Is it going to be responsive? Is it going to, ride true? And is it going to absorb bumps and handle, potholes and things like that good? And something else that I look for is ease of use. When you're setting up a flat tow, you don't want to deal with having to do a bunch of steps. The simpler, the better, at least in my opinion. And with the Blue Ox being a more premier style tow bar, it does excellent in both of those categories. With that said though, you're probably wondering, is this going to be the right tow bar for me? And this is one you really can't go wrong with. It's going to work in just about every scenario. And it seems like a big reason a lot of people choose to go with it is the weight capacity. It's definitely on the higher end. It can handle, or it's rated for up to 10,000 pounds, which is definitely up there. That's going to be more than sufficient for just about any vehicle on the road that you're going to be flat towing for the most part. And so it seems like a lot of people end up changing vehicles every couple years, setting up different flat tows. And so with a setup like the Avail and having that high capacity, if you have a small car right now, definitely not going to hurt. You'll have an overbuilt tow bar for it. But if you end up changing vehicles down the road and getting maybe a pickup truck or a full-size SUV, this is still going to be able to handle it, and you can reuse it. And so you can kind of grow into this tow bar. As far as how well the tow bar is going to pull your vehicle down the road, from my understanding, people are really happy with it. It makes sense, the weight capacity probably has a lot to do with it, being overbuilt in most situations. When you hit those potholes and bumps and whatnot, it's going to absorb a lot of that shock. But I really think the overall length of it has a lot to do with pulling your vehicle down the road as well. So from the attachment point to attachment point, when the arms are fully extended, that's going to be 52 inches, which is one of the longer tow bars out there on the market. And generally speaking, the more distance you have between the back of your motorhome and the front of your vehicle, the better. It's got to let you kind of get around those tight spots a little bit better and have some more maneuverability. But, I'm really curious myself on if that actually is going to hold true with this setup. So since I got everything hooked up here, we'll put our vehicle in flat tow mode and take this for a spin. One of the important things with a tow bar is how easy is it going to be able to maneuver, when you're all hooked up and flat towing. And we got a pretty good scenario today. We had a pretty large motorhome and a large vehicle at that, full-size SUV. And we're just going to run around our parking lot here. It's really tight, not a whole lot of room to swing around and whatnot. And so kind of simulating a real life experience. This is the type of place where you try to avoid when you're towing anything for that matter. And a tow bar that can perform well can really be clutch in a situation like this. So we'll see how it does here around some of these real tight turns, and if we can manage to kind of sneak around this parking lot here without any issues. We'll hit our first turn here, and I'm watching our vehicle behind me, and I'm manipulating it how I would, where I'd want it to go essentially. So as I'm turning, our vehicle's following suit almost immediately. Really, there's a little bit of a delay there, but it's almost inevitable. So even around real tight turns like this, it seems like tow bar is responsive and pulling our vehicle in a way that we'd want it to. Maneuverability and the tow bar being responsive is really important in scenarios where you need to turn around as well, because when you're, you know, all hooked up and everything, you're not able to just throw it in reverse and straighten out and be able to make that tight turn. And we'll test it here. Like I said, we're in a big motorhome and a large vehicle and don't have a ton of room in this little spot here, and I'm going to see if I can't swing everything around without any issues. And as I'm turning, our vehicle is almost cutting harder than what I'm actually turning the wheel here. Just kind of paying attention to everything, and I think we are in the clear without any issues. So pretty good to see. You know, if you really cut that wheel hard, the tow bar is going to respond in a way and make the vehicle do the same thing. When it comes to actually setting your tow bar up and hooking up to the front of your vehicle, you're going to want something that's straightforward, and this is just that. All right, definitely one of the easier ones out there, really nothing to it. You're going to have a pin here and a clip, and that's it. You know, you line this up, pop it in there, and lock it down. You know, of course, too, you want to hook up your safety cables and any of your other flat towing components before you get going, but that's the gist of it as far as pairing up the tow bar with your base plate. Speaking of base plates, this is going to be compatible with Blue Ox base plates, as well as Demco tabless base plates and the etrailer.com invisible base plates, so direct match up there if you have any of those style of base plates. And it can also work with other manufacturers as well. So let's say, for example, maybe your vehicle has a Roadmaster base plate on it, but you really want to use this tow bar. Chances are really, really good you're going to be able to, and that's because there's a bunch of different adapters available now that you can simply just switch out the ends here and allow everything to match up. There's something else that this setup has that, in my opinion, is at least a must-have, but I really want to show that feature off. So to do that, I'm going to spin this around and show you what I'm talking about. One of the things I always recommend when it comes to picking out a tow bar is make sure you get one that is non-binding, whether it be this one or a different one. But with that said, the Avail has that feature, and more or less what that means is if the arms get into a bind, it's going to be really easy to disconnect. So I drove around and parked kind of at an angle here to effectively demonstrate that. Arms are locked out, and we'll try to separate this here. So I'll get our safety cable out of the way, make it easier to see what's going on. When I pull this out and I try to pull this pin out, it's not moving at all. You know, this thing is locked in place. And so that can be extremely difficult to try to take apart. But with the non-binding style on our Avail here, we have this lever. And if you push down on that, kind of heard it pop there, it released all that tension. Okay, and because of that, now that pin pulls out super easy. I mean, no effort at all, really. And so that can really go a long way when you're going to disconnect everything, because 9 times out of 10, once you get to where you're going, this is probably going to happen or be the case. And just makes life a lot easier, as opposed to binding type tow bars. They don't have those type of levers like this one here. With those, a lot of times we'll have a button or something, and you know, people end up getting a hammer and trying to beat the pins out, and that's just a giant headache. You are able to store your tow bar on the back of your motorhome, either temporarily or permanently for that matter, which I think is huge. You know, a lot of the tow bars allow you to do that, so it's not really a special feature, so to speak, but it's an important one, because when you're over the road, you know, every little bit of storage that you can have adds up, right? And so when you're ready to do that and you're all unhooked and everything, the tow bar, just push them arms together, and then you can kind of drop it down to one side or the other. So if you have a ladder or something on one side, you know, the tow bar will accommodate that. And then I kind of just take our safety cables and loop them around up out of the way. Now when you're doing this, either temporarily or permanently, I do suggest using a locking style hitch pin. It's going to secure the tow bar to your coach and help protect your investment. And of course, especially if it's going to be sitting for a while, definitely not a bad idea to use that cover to keep the weather off it. For how stout this setup is, it's relatively light, so it's going to be 45 pounds, so pretty manageable. You know, it's not extremely difficult by any means, at least in my opinion, so just about everyone out there should be able to set this up with relative ease. If you're looking for something that's really lightweight but still real heavy duty, another option would be the Roadmaster Nighthawk tow bar. That one has a lot of aluminum components, and so it drops the weight over this one by about 10 pounds. So definitely on the lighter side, but still up to the task. And it shares a lot of the same features as the Avail here. So just wanted to throw that out there and give you another option you could always look into. Kind of as an added bonus too, the tow bar is actually going to come included with safety cables. And in my opinion, that really just helps kind of simplify setting everything up. You know, there's a lot of parts and pieces to pick from when you're setting up your flat tow. And so with the cables coming with it, just one less thing you're not going to have to think about. You know they're going to be the right weight capacities, the right length, and even the right style. So that's always good. And that kind of brings you to my next point, actually. If you end up going with the Avail or any tow bar that doesn't have channels or cable management system for that matter, when you go to pick out your tow bar wiring, your umbilical, you're going to want to get one like this, which is coiled. That way it'll sit, high off the ground whenever you're going straight, but be able to stretch out and give you that extra length when you go to make those turns. As far as the appearance of the tow bar, I think it looks good. It's going to match most setups probably. It has this powder coated finish. It has these thick rubber covers to help protect the arms that slide in and out of the tow bar housing. You got some rubber grips there on the handles. And overall, like I said, I think it looks pretty good. Now, that's not to say that this isn't going to be bulletproof by any means. It sounds like some people, after putting some miles on them, mention that it does get scratched up and dinged up, and honestly, that's to be expected. These things take a beating. You're going down the highway at 60 plus miles an hour in most cases, and it's essentially going to hold true for any tow bar across the board. It's just kind of the nature of it. But there are some things you can do to help prevent that and keep it in better condition, once you really start putting some miles on it. It's not a bad idea to rinse this off every now and again, take some mild soap and water, wipe everything down, dry it off, especially, if you're in areas where there's salt on the road or sand on the road, things that kind of chew everything up. And even, you can maintenance these things too, If the arms start to get difficult to slide in and out, you can take these covers off. They're just zip tied, clean and lubricate the components inside of there, and just show it some maintenance, and it'll keep giving back to you for miles and miles. And there's also a cover for this tow bar. Okay, so it's specifically made for this one. So when you're storing it or things like that, pop that on there. It'll help keep all the elements from beating this up too bad. And those covers, you kind of get 2 for 1. You can also use them as a kneeling pad too. When you go to set up, you take the cover off the tow bar, plop it down, and you got something to kneel on. That way you're not tearing your knees up in the gravel parking lot at the campsite. The tow bar is going to work with 2-inch by 2-inch hitches, so that's pretty much a standard for just about all the coaches out on the road. So you should be in pretty good shape there. It will come with a pin and clip as well, so you don't have to worry about grabbing that. And 9 times out of 10 too, you're probably going to need to use what's called the high-low adapter, which we needed one today. But that's this part here, right? So the tow bar plugs into it. In our case, we have a rise. A lot of times, that's the other way around. You'll need a drop. But the whole point of having the high-low adapter is to make sure that the tow bar is riding level. That way it can perform as you'd want it to. And it's pretty easy to figure out if you're gonna need a high-low adapter or not. What you can do, try to get on level ground like we are here, park your coach, and take your vehicle that you're gonna be flat towing and pull it up to it, about something like this. And you can measure from the center of the attachment point on your base plate down to the ground, and then from the hitch pin hole on the hitch here on your motorhome down to the ground. And you want that measurement to be within 3 inches, okay? That's kind of the safe zone there. So let's say if you exceed that measurement by 4 inches, okay? So there's a 7-inch difference. You can get a 4-inch either rise or drop, install that into the hitch, and then plug your tow bar into that, and that's going to keep it nice and level and pull your vehicle down the road as you'd expect it to. When it comes down to it, a tow bar that you really can't go wrong with. It seems like a lot of people are really happy with these, and I can see why. Even though it's so heavy duty, it's still really easy to use and figure out. It's manageable and looks good while being able to do all those things. So definitely one worth considering, and like I said before, one that you can grow into if needed. But with all that said, I think that'll about do it for our look at of the Blue Ox Avail tow bar.